So I picked up this 8-inch wheel setup for the Doodlebug with street tires. Yeah, these things are kind of cool. I picked them up used, but I think you can get wheels similar to this on AliExpress. So I put the front wheel on the Doodlebug, and then I used the back wheel for the set on the front of this bike, which is going to be an e-bike. Since this wheel has a very small disc on it, I think it's about, what, 5.5 inches or so, I figured I would try to fab up a brake for this wheel. So I have this small 1-piston brake setup, and then a shorter brake line, which I'll probably need if I'm just going to run it from the right handlebar down. So I'm going to need a shorter line, at least shorter than the one that came with the brake. And then I have a right hand brake handle. So I think I'm going to put all this stuff together and try to fab up a brake. So I'm going to pull off this long brake line and this left-handed handle, which won't work on this setup. I probably can kind of run the caliper up here closer because this is so small. If I run it out here, I don't know how I'd make a mount, so I think I'm going to run it up here closer to the top, and then bolt a mount on here, and then maybe weld it across to the bar there. Man, that might work. I think I'll use this brake bracket that I pulled off of here when I installed the rear brake. I got these extenders from Go Power Sports and the dual piston brake for the back. And then I pulled off this mount for the stock brake that was on here. So I think I'll use this for the front, maybe. So I figure maybe I can bolt this bracket on the brake. So bolt that on there, and then maybe I can weld another bracket off of this bracket. So I was thinking mounting the caliper somewhere like that. Just cut a piece of metal and just run a simple piece from there to there, weld it up on the fork right there. Or another way I could do it without welding onto the fork is run the caliper and then run this rear brake mount on here and shorten it up and just run it on the axle here. I still have to weld a tab from here to here to keep the brake from rotating. So I figure I got to weld anyway, so I might as well just weld up a stationary mount on here. Because I think I'm going to hook up the brake line and then run the handle, and that way I can clamp the brake onto the disc exactly where I want it hydraulically, and then I can mark for my mount, and then the caliper will be clamped exactly where it needs to be. So I'm going to run my brake line on this caliper. Throw my handle on here. And that way I can put the entire setup on here and know exactly where my caliper needs to go. So now I'll mount this on the handlebar. Throw this handle on here. Okay, so I got the brake handle on there and the brake line ran down. I'll throw some brake fluid in here and then clamp the caliper exactly where I need it and then mark that bracket. Put some fluid in here. Get this brake bled. Yeah, so now I'm gonna go ahead and bleed this thing. Hold this down and see if I get the air out of the line. All right, so we got a nice tight brake handle. So now I can clamp the caliper to where I need it. So I need the caliper about right, just off the disc just a little bit so it doesn't rub. So I'll pull it off there just a little bit and then squeeze this handle and then put a zip tie on it to hold the handle down to keep the caliper on there. Okay, so now it's locked down just off the disc there so it doesn't rub. And that way now I can mark my mount. I'll make sure it clears everything. Now I'll run my mark where I need to weld my bracket. Then I can just weld it back to the fork here and we should be good. So let me pop this bracket off of here and weld me a piece of metal. Weld me a little piece of metal across here. Put my bracket off here. So I got the bracket welded up. Now I'll bolt it onto the caliper here, and then I can see where I need to weld it onto the frame. So that looks like it'll work. So now I just run a bead right here onto the frame. That looks like it'll work. So I'll throw a weld right along there, throw a bead right along there, and I think we should be good to go. Okay, so that ought to do it. I think I'll pull this front wheel off of here and then paint the bracket to match everything. Nice. It works really good. So pull all this stuff off here so I can paint this thing. Yeah, I think it turned out pretty good. Put some of my lime green on here. Let me throw my wheel back on here. Throw my caliper on here. So that looks pretty good. I mean, it's not a dual piston brake, but it'll work. I mean, actually no need for a dual piston on this bike because it already has one on the back. But I figured since the wheel already had a disc on it, might as well use it.